I like sim racing, it's fun, but I cannot justify getting one of those high-end racing cockpits. Like, these take up so much space and also cost a lot of money. I'm gonna be racing like maybe once a week, and I need my room and my desk for other things, and not just for sim racing. And let's be real, many of these rigs aren't exactly pleasing to look at when not in use. So I set the goal that my rig can be fully put away and fits in a very confined space. On this small shelf in my IKEA cabinet, to be more specific. So it has to be a desk-mounted setup. I guess if you're willing to dedicate a bit more space, a wheel stand or a foldable cockpit are also an option, but these aren't going to be so easy to hide when not in use. And yet, even when everything is installed, I think this setup still looks great, and there are almost no cables inside. And the whole thing is actually ready to race in just a few minutes and just as easy to put away. That's thanks to a few little tweaks I want to talk about in a bit, and I've also picked up a few accessories that greatly improve the experience, like these little plastic things, for instance. We'll get back to these in a minute, but let's start with the centerpiece, the wheel and wheelbase. This is my old base, the Thrustmaster TX, which is the Xbox version of the very popular T300 RS. And yeah, it's a pretty decent belt-driven base, but it kind of was time for an upgrade. Especially now that direct drive bases are rather affordable, which, in case you never heard about direct drive, is clearly the superior tech. So it basically boils down to the Fanatec CSLDD, the Moza R5, or the cammus C5, which are the three most affordable direct drive wheelbases. Okay, there's also the Moza R3, but it's the only 3.9 Nm base as opposed to the 5 and 5.5 Nm ratings of the other bases. In hindsight, 3.9 Nm are probably also plenty for desk mounting, as 5.5 Nm has my desk creaking quite a bit, which was a bit concerning, so I had to dial back the force feedback to about 50 to 75% depending on the game anyway. And that's also the reason why I wouldn't recommend even more powerful wheelbases than 5.5 Nm for desk mounting. It puts a lot of strain on the desk, and those table clamps can also handle only so much before they start moving around. Now the choice between cammus, Fanatec and Moza is pretty tough, as they all have their pros and cons. The biggest difference between these bases is that the cammus C5 has its motor integrated into the wheel, and therefore doesn't support different wheels, whereas both Moza and Fanatec offer a modular design, and therefore a better upgrade path with different wheels and also stronger wheelbases down the line. On the other hand, the cammus C5 and its bundle are a good bit less expensive, and the wheel is ultra compact thanks to the integrated design. And I had a hard time deciding between these three, until I got an email from Cammus asking if I wanted to check out their base. So yeah, the C5 bundle it was. But from my research, I think you can't really go wrong with either of these bases and their respective ready-to-race bundles. Now, no matter which base you go with, you really want to spend some time to get the cable management right. Not just because it looks better, but also to make the setup process faster. I highly recommend using some sort of cable rack, like the IKEA Signum that I'm using. I have all three cables that go to the base tied together with lots of Velcro straps, so that I can just put them on the Signum rack when not in use, and pull them out all together when installing the base. You can never have too much Velcro straps, and a roll like this is pretty cheap and lasts a long time. All the entry-level direct drive bases have detachable cables, which makes this a lot easier. I've also marked the optimal position for the base with some painter's tape under the desk, so that I can install it at the perfect position every time and have the cables at their perfect length. So the setup process takes me less than 5 minutes in total. Now a monitor arm also helps a lot with this. You really want to get your monitor close for sim racing to help with immersion, especially if you're using a 27-inch monitor like I am. And a monitor arm like this makes the setup process a lot more convenient, as you can just swivel the monitor into place. I've mounted the pillar to the left, so that I can have the monitor at a normal distance for my regular setup on the right, and use the full length of the arm to get it even closer for the racing rig on the left. I have this monitor arm and all the other stuff linked down below, but this is just a pretty generic monitor arm. It gets the job done, but surely isn't the most stable arm, especially if you're driving like me. Anyway, I'm also using the cammus pedals that come with the C5 bundle, and I'm actually positively surprised by how well they stay in place with just these little rubber pads. Okay, these pedals also don't have a very high resistance and no load cell or damping on the brake pedal, so these truly don't have the most refined pedal feel, but the moderate resistance is also the reason why they work pretty well for a desk setup without having to bolt them down. My chair, however, keeps rolling away when I'm pushing down hard on the pellets. And that's where these little plastic things come into play. I think they are called caster cups, but I have them linked down below. 2 of them are enough to make my chair feel bolted down in place, so these things really help a lot. And yeah, I'm super happy with the overall experience with this rig. It's all set up in just a few minutes, and the position is quite comfortable with the chair lowered a bit and the caster cups keeping it in place. And the force feedback of the cammus C5 is pretty sweet, and actually a good bit stronger than I thought it would be. However, this also means that you have to really tighten the table clamp or it won't stay in place, especially on a smooth tabletop like mine. So that's what I did when I was trying out this setup for the first time, and it immediately left a dent on my desk. It's actually the screws which cammus provide that are causing this. They're about 1 millimeter too long and therefore press through the anti-slip pad and onto the table surface. Pretty annoying, but it's rather easy to fix. All you need are some M6 washers. So cammus, if you're watching this, please throw some washers into the box. They only cost a few cents and keep people from damaging their desks. Also, these stock non-slip pads are pretty bad, so I'd recommend getting some of these 30mm transparent pads instead. I'm gonna link those down below. So yeah, cammus have some room for improvement left when it comes to the table clamp. Like a few washers and better anti-slip pads would improve the out-of-the-box experience a lot. And making the desk clamp a tad more spacious would also make fiddling the cables through less annoying, as there's not much room left. I know that sim racing equipment is traditionally a bit more geared towards people who install their wheelbases on a racing cockpit or wheel stand, so I guess the desk clamp was a bit of an afterthought, and making the installation on the desk quick and easy is probably not the highest priority. But considering the C5 bundle heavily competes with Logitech and Thrustmaster, trying to attract first-time sim racers, cammus could put a bit more thought into this and make it a bit more consumer-friendly. I think there's demand for these more refined desk setups, like as a sort of middle ground between dedicated sim rigs and those entry-level wheels by Thrustmaster or Logitech. At least I really enjoy having a good quality direct drive wheel without having to buy and store a huge sim racing rig. Thanks for watching, bis zum nächsten Video.